The theme we've chosen this year for Lent at the Duke Catholic Center is this journey, the image of journey, step by step, a journey during this Lenten time. And I think it's a beautiful, beautiful image because very much it goes in kind of in step, with what even Pope Francis has been talking about, and continue to pray for him and his health. And it is very much the experience of the apostles, the first followers of Christ. They walked with Jesus. He went around through Galilee and into Jerusalem and back out, and they walked with him. And so we're invited to be on a journey. It's a journey of penance. It's a serious journey. It's a beautiful journey as well. And it's a journey that takes us not so much from one location to another, but it takes us out of ourselves towards God. So it's a journey out of our ego, our selfishness, and towards God. And it's a time to practice the penance, the practices of Lent we heard about on Wednesday, fasting, prayer, and almsgiving as means to come closer to God. In the first reading from Deuteronomy, we have this highlight of the importance of recognizing that one's possessions are not one's own. And we have this beautiful recalling of what happened as God freed the people of Israel out of Egypt. And they recall, and he says, he brought us out of Egypt with his strong hand and outstretched arm, with terrifying power, with signs and wonders, and bringing us into this country. He gave us this land flowing with milk and honey. And you can add to that, and he gave us water from the rock, and he gave us manna from heaven and quail to eat. Therefore, I have now brought you the first fruits of the products of the soil, which you, O Lord, have given me. It's beautiful. It's a recognition that what they have, what they got from the soil, is not their own. But all good things come from God. It is his, and we give it back. It's a recognition that what we have received is always from God. So the practice they had is to give the first fruits, to offer those to God. And having set them before the Lord your God, you shall bow down in his presence. It's a beautiful image to recall in this Lenten journey that is part of what we have to do. It's a time to stop and see, what is it that I have, and do I recognize it as coming from God? Everything should bring us back to God. Because by that same logic, we look at things and say, well, this is a gift from God. Can I find God in that? Can I find God in my successes, the blessings that I receive, material or otherwise, to recognize that it comes from him? Every breath I take is a gift from him. That I woke up this morning is a gift from him. The essence of Lent is this journey towards God, in a journey of penance, a time to move beyond our ego, to be able to recognize and focus our attention on God. I remember coming back years ago, 2009, I was coming back from my first ever international mission trip. I was still a religious brother, not a priest, and I was flying back from where we were in missions. We were up in these mountains far up in Mexico, just really beautiful sights next to a volcano and just wonderful people, and it was just something I never imagined existed. It was just incredible. People who were poor and yet were not miserable, they were happy. It just had me question a lot of things in my own life, coming back at that point, flying from there back to Miami, where I was working at the time. And I have this thing, I fall asleep on planes pretty quickly. It's a blessing, I think. So before it takes off, I'm out. And somehow, a little bit later, I'll wake up, especially if people are talking. So there was a man and a woman in front of me, and they were yapping away. So they woke me up from my slumber. And so I'm looking, I'm trying to read my book, and I hear the conversation. Clearly, this guy is giving slimy vibes, totally. It's like, and it was just proven by what I would hear him saying afterwards, like, man. And so he clearly is flirting with this woman. They're adults, probably in their 40s, and he's flirting with her and just trying to, at one point he like grabs her hand, starts, no worry, you know what you need? You need to like show love to yourself. You need to go, and when you get into Miami, make sure you go and get a massage, and you get this, and then you go and spend some money, buy yourself something nice. And I was like, and this guy, he's one of these, like, well, he's probably closer to 50, but he's like, has not accepted that he's past his prime. And you're looking, you can see, and it's like, he's living what he's preaching, I'll say that. He's got his the whole look. He's dressing like a teenager, but he's well beyond that age. And I kept thinking, contrasting that with my own experience just before getting on that plane and just thinking, poor woman, she probably is, I missed that part of the conversation, I was asleep, but she probably is going through a rough time. And the solution this guy's giving is go spend some money on yourself. As if that ever was a solution. If that were the case, rich people would be the happiest people in the world, and we know it's not true. Actually, probably quite the contrary. So, in this Lenten journey, it's a time for us to think, do I see the things in my life as gifts to bring me closer to God, or what could be very dangerous, as something taking the place of God, as my God? The temptations that Jesus experiences very much point in the opposite of the direction we want to go, where things are used for our own benefit, our own power, and our own selfishness. Those are the temptations of the devil that we read about in the gospel. If you are the Son of Man, command this stone to become bread. And he says, if you are the Son of God, he'll give you power, so jump off this parapet. Nothing will happen to you. Throw yourself. If you are the Son of God, I'll give you all this if you worship me. All these things are trying to take the place, trying to take bread to take the place of true food that God gives us, fame, power, taking the place of God's power. Those are the traps of these temptations. And it's a reminder that the devil is trying to convince us that things, creatures, St. Ignatius would talk about them in the spiritual exercises. He calls all these things, the good and the bad, things that, especially those things that are good but could be used in a poor way, like money and food and clothing and even fame and professional success. All these things could be good, but they could be used in a poor way. He refers to those as creatures. And the danger with creatures in that big sense is that we only see the creature and it doesn't bring us to the Creator. We see the creatures as the end in themselves. And then the creature becomes an obstacle to God. The creatures become my God with a lowercase g. And it doesn't bring the happiness that I want. I am hungry. And the thought that I have is, maybe I can just get more food. I can turn this rock, God turned this rock into bread. I need you to do that for me because I need to satisfy my need. Instead of turning to God and saying, God, I am hungry. I am hungry. I need you to feed me. What is it that you offer me? And sometimes during Lent, he'll offer to us, remain in your hunger a little bit longer, but I will satisfy you with something much greater than material food. The core of this message is this: life is not just about satisfying our desires, but about maintaining a relationship with God and recognizing his role in all things. Do I, in my work, in my research, do I feel that I glorify God? Do I feel that this work that I'm doing, the fidelity and love with which I do it, does that bring me closer to God? In my studies, my dedication, my use of my time, we're not counting here the success, the grade that I get, but in that moment, the love that I am pouring into this, do I discover God in that? Because then that becomes food for me. That becomes life-giving bread for me. If power is used in function of our ego, it becomes a trap, and I force God to serve me, to fit my framework. And that's no longer God. Then God must obey me. I have this idea, and God must join my idea. He should walk to my step. With the illusion that with that we become rich, the sad thing is we become beggars, but existential beggars. Not just beggars that lack money, but that lack meaning and purpose. These things don't take us anywhere because man does not live on bread alone. Instead, Lent is a journey that brings us back to God. God who prepares for us bread of the finest wheat, the bread of angels. God who is waiting for us, because this God is king. And in his palace, he has the doors wide open, and there's a feast set up for each one of us to walk in and to celebrate. Because it's not just material bread, but he has treasures that we can't even imagine that he's prepared for us because he is king, and that makes each one of us as his sons and daughters heirs to his kingdom, divinely adopted. For those of you who are already walking on preparing for the sacraments at Easter, who have enrolled in the order of Christian initiation for adults, you're waiting, hopefully counting the days till those waters of baptism fall on your head. And the church recognizes those words, "Behold my beloved son, my daughter," as God looks upon you in that moment of divine adoption where the life of grace begins in you and begins that journey. And maybe some of you are thinking about it and going back and forth. Well, I would just invite you to consider there is something great waiting for you, because God also wants to make you an heir to his kingdom. Let us return then to God and rediscover that treasure that he has prepared for us. Let us return to God and rediscover our dignity as sons and daughters of the King of Kings.